Hey guys, what's going on? Watomarmelon back here for a February 20th market watch. As always, clicking the eBay links in the description costs nothing extra for you, and it does support the channel if you purchase anything within clicking that link. I think it's 24 hours, but thank you guys so much. Obviously, what you see on screen is the big news of the day, although if you have seen some of the videos on my main channel, I forget which one I talk about this in, but this shouldn't be too much of a surprise. They announced that these cards were going to be available in the 25th anniversary or 20 quarter century secret rare. And we've already seen what the 20th anniversary rare looks like in the OCG. And so it shouldn't have been a surprise that the 25th or the quarter century secret rare, or whatever you want to call it, should look that different from the 20th anniversary one. And lo and behold, it's basically the same rarity, just with a different watermark. And for those who don't know, this rarity is more or less identical to the Starlight Rare, just with a cool watermark. In my opinion, that watermark makes it a strict upgrade in appearance, although I don't think it's all that different. The important part of this is that these cards that are available in this 25th anniversary or quarter century secret rare, I need to call it that, the ones that are going to be available in this right off the bats in the TCG are cards that are very, very relevant to the collector's sphere, namely the Egyptian god cards in their like blue, red, and yellow anime card art, where the card is the color of, the Egyptian god. So definitely collector pieces, and the less desirable tablet art, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, and the Red Eyes art. The point being that these cards are not something you can scoff at. These are cards that people are going to want, regardless of how rare they are, and they are going to be extraordinarily available. For those who don't know, one out of every of they have these 25th anniversary boxes that contain the six packs, one of each of the six packs that they're reprinting, plus one of these 25th anniversary or quarter century secret rares. One of these six is going to be available as a promo inside of the box alongside the other five, which I believe are just an ultra rare. Why is this important? This is important because these things are going to be everywhere, right? The retail of that box is something like $30. And so if you're getting one of these plus six legacy packs plus five or six other promos, this card might be worth $10 each. Like, I'm not kidding. These might be $10 cards each. And so the novelty of the Starlight Rare is going to fade away. The premium of the Starlight Rare is going to fade away. And this is what I've been saying. And this is the danger of putting your money into modern collectibles. Because while it might be the newest, shiniest, best thing, eventually the novelty wears out. Konami decides, okay, we're going to put our foot down and try to make as much money off of this while it's still considered this premium rarity. They print it into the ground, and it no longer maintains the same premium that it once did. This is what has happened in the OCG. Originally, I believe the 20th Secret Rare came out at about the same time as their Prismatic Secret Rare, which is essentially our Starlight Rare, or it came before it. I forget the exact timing on that, but those 20th anniversary cards were extraordinarily expensive in the beginning, but eventually the novelty wore off. Some of them are still very expensive, but on the whole, because the Prismatic Secret Rare in the OCG has been printed so much, they're no longer as expensive as they once were. And they've printed a lot of cards in this Prismatic Secret Rare, many of them very collectible, and many of them not that difficult to pull. And that's important because your Starlight Rares that you might have put a lot of money into, I don't think the same premium is going to be attached to them as they once were. And you can see that from something like the Prismatic God cards, which are now $120 for a full set of these promos. Keep in mind that when these were first announced and when people were buying these things, it used to be the case that these were about $100 per box. Now, these boxes were loaded. They had awesome sleeves. They had over sleeves. They had a display. I don't know how they expected to not sell out at $30 retail. I, I, I can't believe that they packed so much, along with one of these promos and some packs in there. But the point being that these promos have come down a whole lot because they were printed into oblivion. And while they still are very, very beautiful cards, you can see that these playable versions, I think, are less desirable to collectors than sort of the blue, red, and yellow Egyptian god color match cards that are not playable. So we'll see where everything ends up, but I would just hold your horses on picking up Starlight Rares until we see how much of these hit the market, or how many of these hit the market, because I expect a lot of them to hit the market. And when you have a rarity printed into the ground, just look at something that is much more difficult to get than these 25th or quarter century secret rares. I keep forgetting to call them that. Something like Ghost Rares from Ghost from the Past 2, where that set was printed into the ground and Ghost Rares were twice as accessible as they normally were. You know, the market for those Ghost Rares, those are still pretty cheap cards, and many of them are some of the most iconic cards in the game, printed in this once hallowed rarity that was thought to be the most premium rarity in the game. And that is no longer the case. So we can look at one of the cards that has this modern Starlight Rare printing that has performed extremely well and is thought of as a beautiful version of the card in Stardust Dragon. The reason I don't necessarily understand all the hype behind the Starlight Rare Stardust Dragon, it's a beautiful card, but it has printings in all of the other high rarities. It has an Ultimate Rare first edition, first print printing. And that's not even the highest rarity of the card. It's the Ghost Rare. So those are the original printings of the card. And then you also have a Collector's Rare printing in one of these modern rarities. And then you have the Starlight Rare. And to me, even though Stardust Dragon is an iconic card, it doesn't warrant this sort of insane price point. You've seen that it's really gone up in recent months. We can even look at a year. It's already eclipsed where it was a year ago. And you can see that it's available for $660. The reality is, once the novelty and the premium of the Starlight Rare fades away, people are probably going to be going after the original print Ghost Rare, the original print Ultimate Rare, and you should be ready for that. That this might not hold the same value that it once did once you start getting Blue Eyes cards that are $5 in quarter century secret rare. Once you see God cards available for $10 in quarter century secret rare, I don't know if people are going to be clamoring for the Starlight Rare when it becomes available by basically everybody. Obviously, it's not the exact same as the quarter century secret rare, but it looks to be basically the same modulo a watermark. And then we look at something like Collector Rare, which was the newest, shiniest thing for a brief moment before the Starlight Rare was printed. This thing used to be $300. You can see you can pick it up for $145 right now in near mint first edition. Out of a set, mind you, that was severely underprinted due to COVID. I believe it was the first set that sort of released after sort of supply chain issues had manifest in China or wherever they print these cards. Belgium. I forget where. I know some of the materials like wrapping and the like might come from China. Some of the card stock and the actual card printing might come from elsewhere. I believe it's Belgium and the EU. I don't know if they still print for North American cards. I don't know how exactly the logistics behind it, but the set was underprinted. And the first edition Tooned Chaos boxes are hard to come by nowadays. And yet it is still a $145 card. And keep in mind, there are 15 collector rares, and collector rares are one out of every 3 to 4 boxes. So it's not like this card is appearing in every single box. Not even close. So this is a very rare card, and yet it has seen essentially a half in price. And it's a bit, you can look at other similar things and draw conclusions. We don't know how accurate it's going to be, but who knows where the Starlight Rare will end up once these things become more accessible. And essentially the sort of premium of the card, of the rarity, fades away, because Konami is not going to, Starlight Rares are not going to be the newest, shiniest thing 5 years from now. There's going to be some new rarity 10 years from now. Starlight Rares might be a thing like of this specific era, but who knows what the newest, shiniest thing is going to be. And that's why something like the Ghost Rare, that seems to be something that 10 years from now, the Starlight Rare might still be desirable, but it's not going to be the historic printing of the card. Not nearly as historic as something like the Ghost Rare or even the Ultimate Rare original print first edition. And so we look at this card. Obviously, this card, you're not going to buy this off a TCG player in first edition, but you can see you can get a near mint on limb for $375. That's actually, you see that it goes up very, very quickly. I'm surprised that people are willing to sell at this price point. And honestly, that seems to be kind of a crazy good price point. I'm very, very surprised by a $375 on this thing. And then near mint first edition, 3,000, excuse me. I don't know where people are at on that. I'd be surprised if any of those are actually in near mint condition. My experience is that most of these types of sellers have no idea what they're doing when they assess card condition. Regardless, are you gonna rather have this near mint on limb for $375 or the Starlight Rare for $660? For me, I'd take the Ghost Rare every single day of the week. And so just looking at collector rares and how far they've fallen, the Toon Chaos ones, now these are, I believe, the unlim prices. However, we go to sort of the top card from Toon Chaos, and we look at the first edition printing. Near mint's under 300. This used to be, $400 card or so. So it hasn't been hit quite as hard as something like Stardust Dragon. But if this gets a new printing, sort of the value on this is going to collapse. And so that's a bit scary for sure. You look at some of the other collector rares, most of this stuff is playable, or a lot of this stuff is playable. Something like Psyframe Gear Gamma, playable card. People are not really collecting Gammas to just leave them in a binder until the end of time. Labyrinth stuff, Rite of Aramasir, this is playable stuff. Purely, that's from the newest collector rare set. Lightning Storm has a Starlight Rare. Collector Rare is still a really cool looking card. You got something like Chaos Emperor. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of it is playable, but none of it has held the value that I think a lot of people were expecting, given how rare the Collector Rare actually is. Then we move on to something like Ghost from the Past 2. As I said, Ghost from the Past 2, they printed into the ground. Most of these things have come down quite a bit in terms of the number of listings. This set has been out for almost a year now. I think it's around 9 to 10 months. So we'll see where everything ends up. One of the interesting things is when you look at something like the sealed product, it's starting to inch up quite a bit. And you look at the sales rate on the sealed product, it's selling quite a bit. 5 to 6 of these things tend to sell every day. And some days, as you can see, you're selling dozens of these things. Then you look at the supplies that are available. You have 24 of these not sealed. Well, they have the packs, so this is specifically for people who plan to open it up. You can save a little bit from just getting the packs. You have 24 of these packages. But it's not like there are hundreds of these things available at these lower price points. And you look at how many of these things are coming off the market every day, it gets up to these $80 ranges pretty quickly. Then you start to see more of them available at $80, and then it goes up to $100 quite quickly. I'm not saying that, and you see this person at $100 plus $25 shipping has 83 of them left, so they're kind of holding the line out there, but these things are in high demand, and they're starting to sort of come off of the market for sure. Next up, we have Battles of Legend. You can see the newest, shiniest thing is starting to see more supply come onto the market, and that has not affected the prices too much yet, but you can expect that as you increase the supply, eventually people want to sell this stuff, and there's more competition to force prices down on it, right? Just basic microeconomics. And you can see that this is still holding around 600. These limbs are holding around 200, maybe a little bit more than that, but we'll see where everything ends up once the quarter century secret rare takes into effect, and maybe these aren't really thought of as the most premium versions. I saw a take from actually, a pretty experienced collector that these Starlight rares are going to be the highest rarity of the card when all is said and done, higher than the first edition LOB. Now, for those who don't know, I'm not a huge collector of first edition Legend of Blue Eyes, but I don't see how that's possible. I just think that while these are an awesome version of the card, they look incredible. I think that when all is said and done, they're going to print Exodia again in some other very new and beautiful rarity, and the Starlight Rare is going to still be a beautiful version of it, but it's not going to hold that sort of novelty and premium that it currently does, even though it's extremely difficult to pull, and you need to collect 5 different limbs. Next up, we have Cyber Dragon. You can see that a lot of the cards that really gained in price and were holding prices despite sort of the recent fall in a lot of card prices on the whole, they're starting to fall out from the prices that they once held. You can see that Cyber Dragon is now available at $650. I've been doing these market watches for a couple of months. When I started doing them, this was only available for close to $1,000, often more than $1,000 in near mint first edition. Now you have tons of sellers lining up at $650. It seems like there was kind of a holdout, and people really need to sell right now. It seems to be the case that there is some sort of push to sell. People can no longer hold the line at these absurd prices, and this has really come down on TCG Player. Now, I recently bought a PSA 9 version of this first edition Ultimate Rare on PWCC for 650 hammer. I think it was 750 total, or maybe it was 550 hammer and 650 with buyer's premium. I forget how it works, but that's a PSA 9 version of the card, probably in a lot better condition than these ones. And so I guess it's time that TCG Player prices are sort of reflecting the actual prices that have been on other platforms for these cards. Here's another one, Caius. This was sort of bought out for Edison format. You can see that it's really started to come down in the recent months. Now you can get near mint limbs for 343. I still think that this card has a long ways to fall, but we'll see where it ends up. And then finally we have Trishula, just a card that I really love the foiling on. You can also see that a card like this has really come down. Now, how much of this is the specific card versus overall card prices? Hard to say, but all I can say is that be careful around cards that have those Starlight Rare printings. Who knows where they will end up? So if you guys did enjoy, as always, drop a like, subscribe, that sort of stuff. It's been your boy Watomarmelon, and peace out.